in the heart of the Riverina, where the love of football runs deep. A team rose from the dust to create an enduring legacy. The Narrandera Imperials, a club forged through challenges, triumphs, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. This is their story, a journey of young talent, seasoned leadership, and an unyielding spirit to never quit. The Riverina Football League. Narrandera Imperials faced challenge after challenge, each one a test of their resolve and skill. This was a young side, featuring 6 or 7 teenagers, eager to prove themselves on the field. Guiding them was Jeff Hempel, a Morris medalist in 1969, and the captain coach of their 1972 Premiership team. Though he coached again in 1973, in 1974, he took on a new role as assistant coach to first-year coach Adrian Collier. Adrian Collier brought fresh energy to the team, with Hempel providing invaluable support and experience.
Been playing football in Tasmania. I was an assistant coach to Ricky Watt in 1973 at the Penguin Football Club. One of the problems in playing in Tasmania was the wet weather, and I think that going back to 1973, I think we only won one game for the year. So both Ricky Watt and myself were looking around for other clubs, and I applied for the coaching job at Narrandera. And as a result of that, they invited me up there for a meeting with them to discuss the coaching. In fact, I applied for the assistant coaching job. I didn't really want a senior coaching job. When I went to Narrandera, they discussed it with me, and they felt that I should be putting in for the senior coaching job. And they virtually talked me into it. The thing that was interesting about it was that the fellow that coached them prior to me, Jeff Hempel, they had sort of built a club on a lot of quality footballers, and Jeff Hempel was one of them.
Just on 72, did you play all the games that year?
No, not all of them. Gilly Bottom broke his arm, and that was when I got my first game in the seniors that year.
Played in the grand final?
Yeah.
Won the grand final quite convincingly. A little bit different in 1974.
I remember that one very well too.
Yeah. We had a very young team.
Boy, were they talented. Your Tony Turners, your Terry O'Neills, Neil Derman, they were guns. The Stephen McGosh's, Gary Powell, Victor Hugo, all those players, they were good for a long time, they were.
Let's not sell you short. You were a dynamo in the ruck, and the stamina that you had.
Yeah, I was very lucky there. That was just one of the lucky traits, I suppose. Probably inherited from the old man, I don't know. Yeah, I think everyone's got different attributes as far as that is concerned. Like Stephen McGosh, people used to try and grab hold of him, he'd arch his back, well that'd give him another foot, so where some people couldn't catch him, or Rodney McCallum, he could use his body so well on the half-forward flank, not he could kick between 2 and 5 goals every match. Terry O'Neill was mumbled. Victor Hugo, Gubba Powell, I'd give the ball to Gubba Powell to have a set shot for goal, I'd probably hit about 4 out of 10, but to give him a ball on the run, he'd hit 10 out of 10. He was deadly.
The only reason that I was being considered for the coaching role was because Jeff Hempel had a very bad back injury. He had had a serious operation. I think he had his spine was fused together. He went to the club and said that he couldn't go on. So that's how come I was there. And Jeff stayed with the club as an assistant coach, and he was very highly regarded by the people of the town and the players, and so it was really an extension of good people and Jeff Hempel that laid the foundation for 1974.
One such player to emerge from the Riverina was Terry O'Neill, an athletic, deceptively tall footballer. Terry would go on to play at the highest level for South Melbourne and Fitzroy. Representing Queensland in State of Origin 25 times.
There's Melican's kick into the centre of the ground. Oh, O'Neill.
Looking for Gibson out wide here. Up he goes, got his hands to it, couldn't control it. The chance is there for O'Neill. O'Neill spins around, beats two, gets it onto his boot, shoots a goal, and he's put it through.
Do you think that there was any part of that year that sort of stood by you as you went up the ladder in your own football pursuits?
No, mate, no, we were just having fun.
Because in 1975 you headed off, and in my humble opinion was you became the most successful Imperials player of all time to make the grade at the highest level, both in the VFL and the AFL. Is that a fair comment, do you think?
Oh, mate, that's one for others to speak about, not me.
But you're too modest, that's your problem.
Having never played in defence previously, Terry would play fullback against some of the game's greatest full forwards.
Good kick, O'Neill, well done, good mark.
Down towards Roberts from behind, couldn't take the mark, and in front it should be a beauty to Terry O'Neill.
The half forward, and backing back is Terry O'Neill.
Woodman handballs on quickly, and it's a chance for South to come through, they do so.
Another one from Burt up towards full forward. That was a great mark to O'Neill.
It's a kick at Daisy Keller into centre. What a smashing mark!
A Victorian Football League trailblazer, Terry moved to Queensland and the QAFL for Cooperoo, and as player coach, won premierships in 1984 and in 1986, cultivating with the honour of state captain in 1988.
Heading towards the corner of the square, finds O'Neill. O'Neill, time to set around and steady. Look at that pass! Beautiful.
Well, he and O'Neill have a fight. Oh, it's very close here. Yes, very close. Against Bortolotto, and he's played badly.
Just remembering the 1974 season, you showed a lot of promise. You just kept on building, and there was one game that stood out, and that was at Area Park. You kicked 6 goals that day. You were playing perhaps on one of the best centre-half backs in the competition, Buster Fairman.
Yeah.
They had mature players, tough nuts like Bluey Walker and co. It was an indication that you were going to go on to much bigger and better things. Len McCallum, ruckman. How are you, Len?
Pretty good, thank you, Adrian.
Well, you had to be committed, didn't you?
Lead by example.
I think all the players at different times, they showed the same sort of fight. You know, we had a number of teenagers in that side. Tony Turner, Terry O'Neill, Harold Turner, I think Victor Hugo and Mick Stewart.
Yeah, Gary Powell, Rodney McCallum, Terry O'Neill.
And so intimidation was something that other teams thought they could put it over us, but the commitment of the club and the players, it stood the test, didn't it? It was a great family environment.
Yeah, and I think when we took on the contract for picking oranges out of the orchard, that was sort of out of season, but it kept everyone together. Everyone had a bit of camaraderie running off the field.
Yeah. If you go back to the first practice game, Colin Gully, I think it was.
Yeah, geez, you testing my memory.
I think we won that game, and we sort of established ourselves that we were going to be a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I think when you look back, Narrandra's success was brought on by the coaches, because hence we only had one coach, maybe one paid player, if anything, and a lot of the other clubs around Wagga and that had buy-in players and this and that. But I think that's why a few of the other clubs got the shits with us, because we were so successful and we're all junior locals. We were all mates and we all got on together, played junior footy together. No one was getting any more than anyone else. We all enjoyed what we did and we loved it. So, you know, it's something I'll tell you now, mate, that doesn't happen these days around here.
The Imperials started the season knowing they had talent on every line. Their first test was against Griffith, a side known for its mature and talented players. Griffith threw everything at the Imps, but Narrandera emerged victorious by just 3 points, a crucial confidence builder for the young side.
I'm not sure whether you played in the opening game against Griffith.
I played the whole season. I've missed a few games with injury.
He came back at one stage early in the year after having a cracked rib.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I had a couple of broken ribs and missed about 3 or 4 weeks. You know,
I've got to say that with Tony Turner, he commented, he said Steve Magosas was the best footballer that he has played with. I think the first time we played Griffith, they were a highly rated team. We beat them by 3 points. Tough game and windy conditions. Do you remember that game?
I didn't go too well against Griffith.
Who would have been playing on Kirkpatrick?
Yeah, probably me.
Kevin Kirkpatrick, I reckon he was a kicker, but he never kicked me, I don't think.
You're probably too quick for him.
He did kick, but I think he's only trying to kick the ball off the ground.
Next up was Area Park Marul, led by the formidable Terry Danaher. Narrandera dominated, showcasing their growing prowess. Then came Coolaman, a physical team led by Jim Hayes. Known as the Battle of Kindra Park, it was a tough, spiteful match. Even the local policeman got involved at halftime, warning coach Adrian Collier that no punches were to be thrown.
Well, that was 1974, and we're playing Coolaman, and we'd beaten them in the earlier part of the season, quite convincingly. They didn't have a full team in at that time, so we weren't convinced that we were a superior team at that point. However, when we lined up against them at Kindra Park, their home ground, it was a pretty fiery sort of a contest, and there was a lot of physicality and punches thrown and so forth. A policeman came into the rooms at half time.
The copper, he introduced himself and he said, now you tell your players, the first player after half time that throws a punch, we're going to come out onto the ground, he's going to be arrested and he'll be taken to the lockup and he'll spend the night in jail.
These days they don't lock him for murder.
Things have changed. When I went back out after half time, Jim Hayes was in the middle of the ground. He said, did the coppers come into your room at half time? With a bit of a grin on his face, and it wasn't until later on that I found out he was in the police force.
Despite the rough play, Narrandera won convincingly. Laurie Gibson and Steve Magosa starred, proving the Imps' dominance.
The only way that Coolaman can beat Narrandera because they're so skillful, they might be lacking a little bit of courage. There was Donnie Brooks and...
You're the main offender, I think, which was Kenny Hayes, wasn't it?
That was the accident. Anyway, I do remember the final score. I think we beat them by 100 points. That was when they decided that they had to rejig their game plan to try and beat us coming towards the finals.
Leakin and Griffith handed Narrandera 2 narrow losses before the finals, raising concerns that they had peaked too early. But they finished the regular season at the top of the ladder, exuding an air of invincibility.
But I remember the first 10 games of the year, we just went from strength to strength and we were really, really red hot. And then either we got a bit complacent or the other teams caught up a little bit towards the end of the year maybe.
Then came the big day, the grand final against Coolaman, one of the greatest country grand finals ever played. Coolaman jumped out of the blocks, taking control, leaving Narrandera trailing by 17 points late. The game seemed as good as over. But what happened next is the story of legends.
You kicked 2 goals and you did your knee in.
Done my ankle. Bloody bastard, he trod on me friggin' ankle. Very intensely. Trod on my bloody ankle, the bastard, after I kicked those couple of goals. That was, I went off just before half time, so if I might have been able to hang on to half time, might have been right.
We geared ourselves up to win that grand final. It was a bit disappointing up to half time. And in the second half, I reckon we started to hold them in all positions and they just weren't ready for us to come back, I don't think. They were sitting on their high haunches thinking they've won.
Introducing Hamish Stephen, who played in the back pocket. How many games did you actually play for the club?
Well, it's got to be over 100.
Would the grand final be the most memorable game?
Yeah, for sure.
Narrandera, in that first half, we took 44 marks to Coolaman's 31, and the free kicks, this is up until half time, they had 21 and we had 9.
Holy, I didn't know that.
It was a very even game, but I thought that if we were going to draw away from them, it would have been in the first half because I think we really dominated, apart from the free kicks. Is there any part of the game that you felt was a highlight for you personally?
Only me one and only kick was at the end.
I think that may have been the kick that you directed down the field, and the rest is history, of course.
I left the back pocket. They were stacking our forward time because we were coming hard at them, and I got a free kick, and I just booted, drop kick as far as I could into the forward pocket.
Introducing Tony Turner, the toast of the town 50 years ago, and they're still talking about it.
Yeah, not in a good way sometimes. Not out of town anyway.
Just going back to that goal, do you recollect the lead up?
It's look, Adrian, it's been a long time, to be honest. But my recollection of it is that after the ball had been kicked down to the forward line, it got rushed through by Dick Peeper for a point, and that put us 5 points behind. My understanding, as I remember it, then it was kicked out, hit the ground off the pack, and then Rodney shot out a handball to me, and I was around about 30 metres out, directly in front of goal. So the goal from there was probably something you think about, in your whole footy career, having a shot from 30 metres out directly in front of goal. No, that was going through my head at the time, other than I thought, this is a goal. I had really no thoughts of what the score was at that stage, to be quite honest.
I thought we were gone. As I said, it's still very clear in my mind the 74 grand final, because, as I said, I thought we were gone, and I hate to be beaten, but I'm just glad that the way the whole side got together in those last dying minutes, like for Roddy McCallum to pick that ball out to Tony Turner, and he just went bang, and that was the longest last quarter of football I've ever played.
So you weren't aware that that was the winning score?
Not at the time, no. No, not at the time. I knew that we were a long way down, and according to those afterwards, we were 18 points down going into time on. So I knew that we weren't in a great spot, and it never entered my head that that would be the winning goal. It never entered my head that we would win or we would get beat. It was I was just playing the game. It's a huge effort, for the amount of time that we played. It was well over 120 minutes of footy. To be able to go through and finish off and win was very special to be part of it.
Narrandera would go on to win the thrilling grand final in the dying seconds, securing victory in spectacular fashion. Cementing themselves in the history books, the Imperials triumphed by just 1 point, with a final score of 131 to 130. This unforgettable victory ensured that the 1974 Narrandera Imperials would be remembered as a team that made history and whose legacy will never be forgotten. Let us celebrate the legacy of Adrian Collier and the 1974 Narrandera Imperials, a story of triumph, mateship, and enduring spirit.
Terry O'Neill, former Narrandera star player. Good afternoon, Terry.
Good afternoon, Adrian.
Going back to the starting point of it all, when we met at the coach meeting down at Lake Talbot, you showed us on skis that you're a bit of an Evel Knievel on water, cavitating around the front of Horsey's speedboat at high speed, and disappearing into the woodwork, reappearing about 2 minutes later. But it did show that you were a survivor.
Yes, mate. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a skill. It was a lack of ability at that stage.
Now, you were part of the Henry Matheson schoolboy squad, weren't you?
Yes, mate. Yeah, Henry and I went way back to under 12.
Would you have any sort of idea of the formula that produced so many talented young footballers that came through his hands?
Yeah, mate. I think it was just everybody was involved, and everybody was equal. Nobody was special. And he encouraged everybody.
Were there any other influences in your early development?
Oh, I don't know. I'd say all the coaches, Jeff Ethel, yourself, and I remember Brownie doing the reserves back in 72, I think.
In 72, they won the 3 flags, the first, seconds and thirds. They went a little bit better than that in 74 because it was the under-16s and the under-14s. They all won premierships.
Yeah.
But just remembering the 1974 season, that was your first season in the seniors, or did you play in the seniors in 73?
No, I couldn't. I played in '73. We made not the big dance.
Early in the season, you showed a lot of promise. You just kept on building, and there was one game that stood out, and that was at Area Park. You kicked 6 goals that day. You were playing perhaps on one of the best centre-half backs in the competition, Buster Fairman.
Yeah.
They had mature players, tough nuts like Bluey Walker and co. It was an indication that you were going to go on to much bigger and better things. I know it's a long time ago. Straining a bit. Coolman, they won the 73 flag. They were our main opposition as the season unfolded, and we defeated them in both the lead-up games. The first home and away game, we beat them at Narrandera quite confidently, and then we beat them at Kindra Park later on in the year, and that was a bit of a Donnybrook too.
Yeah,
did you play in that one?
Yeah, I think I played it in all of them, every game, yeah.
Tell me this, do you remember at half-time when a policeman came into the dressing rooms and he cautioned us all? He said, the first player after half-time, if you throw a punch, we're going to come onto the ground and you'll be arrested and you'll spend the night in the lockup. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I think he was being a little bad, but anyway.
But anyway,
the same at the rooms.
Yeah, I found out later on, I didn't know it at the time, but Kenny Hayes, the captain coach, he was a copper himself. I think there was a little bit of devilish tactics there.
Yeah, it could have been, mate, yeah. The Hayes boys, they were all a little bit crazy, especially Kenny.
In the grand final, you were a key player in that. We put you on to Charlie Moses in the second half. He was doing a lot of damage, and if there was any one player that was making them a real competitive unit, it was probably him. And we put you on him, and you cut him right out of the game. So, was there anything that you remember about the fighting spirit that the team had to pull together in the final minutes and seconds of that grand final? We were 18 points down with about 3 minutes to go, and we ended up winning the game.
It was never say die, right? Not over the over. It'll look real good there.
Do you think that there was any part of that year that sort of stood by you as you went up the ladder in your own football pursuits?
No, mate, no. We were just having fun.
Because in 1975 you headed off, and in my humble opinion was you became the most successful Imperials player of all time to make the grade at the highest level, both in the VFL and the AFL. Is that a fair comment, do you think?
That's one for others to speak about, not me.
You're too modest, that's your problem. You played on Peter Hudson on 2 occasions, and he didn't kick any more than 3 goals on you.
No.
Now, as a matter of interest, were you given any special instructions on how to go about keeping a lid on him?
No, not really, mate. I was just playing my own game. And not that I fancy fullback very much, but it's what it is.
And you represented the VFL against the ACT, is that correct?
Yeah, played for Victoria, yeah.
And you coached Cooperoo in 1987 in Queensland?
87, 88, yeah.
And you're also the state captain?
Yeah.
Just a light-hearted comment here. Your nickname at Narrandera was Phantom. Now, when you went to Fitzroy, that name was lost. They called you Frizzy. Do you have a preference?
No, mate, no. I've been called lots of things. So Phantom and Frizzles doesn't bother me.
Okay. All right, mate. Well, look, is there anything else that you'd like to mention now to those that are viewing? I'm sure they would love to hear any comment that you had.
Well, the only thing is that thanks for the support before, and keep up the faith. I believe Narrandera's not going so fast. So.
All right, well, look, thanks, Terry, and all the best to you and Julie. What more can I say?
No.
You've been a credit to Narrandera and the people that you represent from that township.
No worries, mate. Appreciate it.
Good on you, Terry.
Thanks, Adrian. See you, mate.
It seems a long time ago since I was ringing you up to get an interview as to how the Imperials might perform on the weekend.
That's right.
Julie rang me the other day and told me that there was a reunion going and whatnot. She wondered if I had a call of the game, but I don't. And 2WG, well, they never kept those things in those days. They might have just kept, 15 minutes to play something the next week, and then it was gone. So there was no record of that. I'm looking at your picture now because I did find my record. I've still got the program on the day. And I can still picture you with that sort of gingery, curly hair. Now, when you obviously won the premiership in 74, did you stay on for another year or did you go there?
I stayed there for 4 years. So I was there 74, 75, 76 and 77, and we got into the grand final in 76 and were beaten by Ganmain. They had a rather talented team.
Oh, mate, I can still see Poppy Paris kicking that ball out of the centre square.
That's right.
Big Poppy, and they had 4 or 5 of those Darwin boys, and they were just magic, weren't they? Motlop, Hampton, I think, played for them.
Hampton, that's correct.
Young Motlop, who plays now for Carlton, is Eddie Motlop's grandson. Can you remember Grant Lewis?
He played for Griffith.
Yeah, well, his old man Jack, he used to call the football with me from time to time. 2RG and 2WG would do a joint coverage. So we both sat side by side, and I'll never forget, he smoked a bloody pipe. And in those days, like lots of people smoke, and Jack would be sitting there smoking his bloody pipe, calling the football. And, it was, and the smoke's going down the back of your throat sort of thing. He was a good bloke. And the other old great media man from Narrandera, of course, was Dan Clark.
I remember Danny Clark.
He was as one-eyed for Narrandera as you could get. He was completely dedicated to the cause. The other sort of personality players, Laurie Gibson, who I sort of dubbed the Bear, the way he lumbered around the ground, he was always a great player, wasn't he?
That's right, yeah.
Is that how you describe him?
He had such great stamina for a big man. I used to train like hell to be fit for the football season. Laurie, he just used to like going for a nice relaxing walk, and on game day, he had this endurance that was really not the usual thing for a big man.
He started the game with his socks down around his boots, and that's where he finished.
Do you remember him in the grand final in 74?
Yes.
He was at the centre bounces. It was in those dying moments that he was able to direct the flow of the game into our forward line.
Now, Tony Turner, who kicked in from the centre scoreboard wing, did he start on the ground or was he an emergency? Like, he was only 17.
He started on the ground on the wing.
Yep. Is Victor still going?
In 1979, Victor kicked 10 goals in the preliminary final, and then he turned around in the grand final and he kicked another 10.
Oh, Victor could play.
Too right.
And he was an out there sort of a raucous type of a bloke to go with it, He was one of those blokes that had a bit of ability and didn't mind telling you about it. Those sort of fellas are fine. You don't mind blokes with big mouths as long as they can walk the walk and talk the talk. Anyway, it's great to chat with you, Adrian.
Thanks very much, Alan.
All right, Adrian. Cheers now.
And thanks for your help.
No worries.
Are you free to talk at the moment?
Yeah, I just fed the dogs. There's a lot of advantages to getting old, isn't there? No? What are they? I'm just trying to think of the funny stories too, We played Ganmain at Ganmain. It hailed that hard, they called half-time break about 3 or 4 minutes early so we could get off the ground. We sat down, and Don Durnham was the then president. He come round with a bottle of, we didn't know what it was, in a brown paper bag, and a little plastic cup. He said, "Here, drink this." Everyone had about 2 mouthfuls, found out it was green ginger wine. He said, in the end, he said, "Yeah, I've got to warm these up to get back out there." I've never drank alcohol at half-time of a game before, so that was another first. But there's been some funny things happen. I can't remember the years and that. There was a bloke, Duncan McLeod. He was playing reserves at Coolaman, and right in the 10-yard square, it was wet. Right in the 10-yard square in front of the dressing shed, he had a dummy eye. His fake eye, it got knocked out. He got hit in the back of the head going for a mark, and it fell out on the ground. The play went on. Next thing he yelled out, "Oh, my eye." And this bloke who hit him turned around, and his eye's gone. And the bloke started crying. Anyway, next thing they're down on their hands and knees looking for it. And Duncan had underneath his hand all covered in mud. And he's still scratching around, just playing along with it. That was funny. And the other thing that wasn't funny was up at Ganmain in one of those years, a bloke by the name of Graham Turlick, school teacher. He got completely smashed in the square on the road end going through Ganmain. They picked him up, and as they picked him up, the trainers seen blood trickling down from his shorts. One of his balls burst open and he lost it. Anyway, they said that was the end of things for him. 3.5 years later, him and his wife had twins. Yeah, so there you go.
I know there was a funny one with Laurie Gibson, with Normie Dean.
Yeah, remember that? We had a bit of a competition about the ugliest person in the club. So Gubba went home and got his fucking white bull terrier. And all the girls that in the sitting there drinking piss after a game. They, said, all right, you get up. About 10 or 12 blokes got up and walked around the circle. Next thing, the Gubba walked in with his bull terrier, Ted, I think his name was. He led the bull terrier around in the circle, and then all the girls, they'd say, right, stop. They'd say to the blokes, you sit down, you're not bad, you're pretty hot. You sit down, so and so on. They'd walk around again. Yeah. And then, anyway, got down to the second last walk, and there was only 4 blokes there. So they walked around again and they squashed 3 blokes out, and I'm sure, I've got to find out though, I'm sure it was Wally Whitby. He was left there with Gubba's bull terrier. Fucking shit. I think Wally went mad. I think he fucking played up, So he was the ugliest cunt in the pub. I've got to make sure with Gubba about that. And then another one, do you remember Desi Hunt? Yeah. And they used to go to football, that 4 with another bloke, Stephen Fisher, Chicken Man they used to call him.
Yeah, I remember him.
Anyway, he was as tight as a fish's arsehole. They had 3 games away, and the 4th game away, Chicken Man took his car. And when they got to Cairmain, he said, right, you blokes, before you get out the car, he said, I'll get $2 off you for petrol. Daddy said, for what? He said, for petrol. He said, we've taken our cars and taken you, and we didn't charge you anything. He said, yeah, but I've got to get me petrol money. Daddy dived into his pocket, grabbed his wallet, got a $2 note out and fucking ripped it in half. He said, here, I'll get another ride home with somebody else. Give him half a $2 note. So, there's a lot of little stories like that. Yeah.
If you go back to the first practice game, Colin Gully, I think it was.
Yeah, geez, you testing my memory.
I think we won that game, and we sort of established ourselves that we were going to be a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I think when you look back, Narrandra's success was brought on by the coaches, because hence we only had one coach, maybe one paid player, if anything, and a lot of the other clubs around Wagga that had buy-in players and this and that. But I think that's why a few of the other clubs got the shits with us, because we were so successful and we're all junior locals. We were all mates and we all got on together, played junior footy together. No one was getting any more than anyone else. We all enjoyed what we did and we loved it. So, it's something I'll tell you now, mate, that doesn't happen these days around here. No. I've never seen, well, it was Southwest then, but it's the Riverine Football League now, but I've never seen the league so weak. It's pathetic. Even Wagga Tigers, they've gone downhill this year, and they've usually dished out big money every year to buy players because they've got jobs and they've got everything in Wagga. Even rugby league, a couple of clubs in the Group 20 have forfeited games and said they're pulling out this year. And I don't know whether the young people aren't around.
What would be the population of Narrandera now?
Good question. Probably not much more than 6,000, 6,500.
What games stood out for you? I know you kicked bags of goals in different games.
Well, definitely the grand final. I think it was something like 15 points down at the 22-minute mark of the last quarter. It's a matter of club mateship and drive for a team to come back from, say, 17 points down at the 20 or 21-minute mark of the last quarter, get a grand final, and come back and win. It's not very often heard of around here, considering we were just a team of locals with one coach.
Who do you reckon was the best footballer at Narrandera?
Well, I would have to say probably Jeff Hempel. For a bloke his size and that, to play centre-half forward, leads the ball, and then turn like Tex Walker does now for Adelaide Crows. They never knew which way to tackle him because he could turn both ways and kick 60 metres left or right foot.
Right.
And he was a bloke who came up to Narrandera coaching, came up for 2 years and stayed for 26, I think.
Right. How did you get the name Noddy?
Whenever I used to get drunk, I used to nod off in the chair where we were. So I think Skinny Matheson, well, he changed it because you just put an N on nod instead of rod. Yeah. All right, boys, I'll catch you.
Yeah, well, my recollections, we played Coolman in the second semi-final. We beat them by almost 100 points, and they had to go into the prelim, and they won. And when they come out on grand final day, that was a totally different side that we played against 2 weeks before. It was a struggle, and they played very good football till the end. And I just, I was never so relieved to hear that siren ring.
If we'd lost it, we would have been hard done by it.
I thought we were gone. As I said, it's still very clear in my mind the 74 grand final, because, as I said, I thought we were gone. And I hate to be beaten, but I'm just glad that the way the whole side got together in those last dying minutes, like for Roddy McCallum to pick that ball out to Tony Turner, and he just went bang, and that was the longest last quarter of football I've ever played.
Yes.
Cut all the bullshit out of it, but anyway, it was a great grand final, and we had a great win.
Good on you, mate. First practice game against Colin Gully?
Well, when the chips were down and that guy Lambert come down and started to throw his weight round. You stepped in and settled things down, and we gained quite a bit of respect for a first-up coach, and I was impressed with that. You were looking after the players.
Just on 72, did you play all the games that year?
No, not all of them. Gilly Bottom broke his arm, and that was when I got my first game in the seniors that year. I ended up going into the back pocket, and I played the rest of the year there in the finals. I can't recall how many games I played in the back pocket there, but I remember taking a couple of good marks against Phil Gehrig there one day, and from then on I was permanent back pocket.
Who would have been your toughest opponent?
Oh, look, the coach of the Griffith side was probably my toughest opponent. Can't remember his name. They went through undefeated until we beat them in the grand final. He changed in the forward pocket, and he was a sort of a short, nuggety bloke, fairly solid. Yeah, but I remember him kicking 5 goals the day we played. I don't know whether it was in a semi-final or just a home and away match.
You went on and played in the grand final?
Yeah.
Won the grand final quite convincingly. A little bit different in 1974.
I remember that one very well too.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the third quarter, they kicked away in the third quarter, didn't they? They got quite a few goals that put them well up at three-quarter time.
I think it was Ron Barassi, one of his famous calls was there's 6,000 seconds in a game of football.
Yeah, right.
You've got to concentrate for that 6,000 seconds.
Yeah.
If ever that was going to apply, it was on that occasion.
Yeah. Well, with that side, I looked at it as against the 72 side, and I thought there was probably about 8 players or 10 that played in the 72 side that didn't play in the 74 side. I've got a photo at home. They took those photos, but some of the players weren't there, especially the 74 team, likes of Kevin Mayle and Graham Ward, Billy Robbins and that played the 72. You know, they were ones that didn't play in 74 sort of thing.
We'll wind it up at that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to catching up with you. All right, see ya.
Bye. Introducing Hamish Stephen, who played in the back pocket. How many games did you actually play for the club?
Oh, it's got to be over 100. That's first grade.
When did you play your first game?
I think 1965.
Would the grand final be the most memorable game?
Yeah, for sure.
Narrandera, in that first half, we took 44 marks to Coolaman's 31. And the free kicks, this is up until half-time, they had 21 and we had 9.
Holy, I didn't know that.
It was a very even game, but I thought that if we were going to draw away from them, it would have been in the first half because I think we really dominated, apart from the free kicks.
Well, I thought they come pretty hard at us in the first quarter.
Who was your opponent?
Larry Maloney.
Yeah.
Kevin Maloney. Nags Mackenzie.
I think Mackenzie was shown in the paper to be the player that you would have lined up on. They sort of rotated around a bit, didn't they?
When they used to swap in the forward pocket, now they swap in the half-forward line, you wouldn't know where they are.
Is there any part of the game that you felt was a highlight for you personally?
Only me one and only kick right at the end.
I think that may have been the kick that you directed down the field, and the rest is history, of course.
I left the back pocket. They were stacking our forward line because we were coming hard at them. And I got a free kick. And I just drop kick as far as I could into the forward pocket. Noddy McCullum jumped out, took the mark, and he would have been in kicking distance. He immediately played on, done a wobble, a punch kick across the face of the goal into the arms of Tony Turner.
That's a very accurate recollection of the last minute of play.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking maybe 30 seconds would have pulled it up. That's how close we were to getting beat. What I remember most about the game, the speed at which the ball moved from one end of the ground to the other end of the ground was more like a game of basketball. And when you consider 131 to 130, today if we kicked 130, we'd bank in the 4 points. If it was in the grand final, you'd be unfurling the flag. And when it come to the stage where we were 17 points down, How much time was there left when Tony actually kicked that last goal?
I think when the ball went back to the centre, the siren sounded.
No, the ball was bounced. They give a free kick for an infringement. I think it might have been against Gubble, I'm not sure. And they kicked the ball, then they sounded the siren. So that's how close it was.
About 2 minutes of play left. One of the Coolman players came over to Jim Hayes. They were just about to bounce the ball again. He's come over and I've heard him say to him, "Well done, Jim. You've done it again, mate. Well done." And he shook hands with him. So
Jimmy Hayes, he was a coach.
Kenny was a centre-half back, sorry. Yeah. Just in conclusion, Hamish, what age were you? I think you were the oldest player in the team.
Yeah, I would have been 27 in October that year.
Good on you, Hamish. Thanks very much.
All right.
We'll see you at the reunion.
All right.
Blackie, you found form at the right time of the year. You earned yourself a place in a grand final team. I'm not sure whether you stayed on the half-forward flank.
No, I went back to where I usually play, ruck rover.
Up until half-time, if you look at the statistics, we had taken 44 marks to their 31. The only thing that went against us was the free kicks. They had 21 free kicks up to half-time. Have a guess how many we had?
Well, about 10.
We had 9.
You know, there's a few goals in that.
Yeah.
On the grand final day, I can vividly remember that all players were G'd up, pumped up, ready to go. I've got two memories that come back to me all the time. The first one was Stephen McGosis hitting me on the chest with the ball, and Kerry O'Connor receiving the ball on the back flank.
What about the dominance of Laurie Gibson?
Well, I don't think Loza would have lost a ruck that day. See, he never switched off the ball, neither.
That's right, yeah.
Lenny McCullum and I used to change. That was after the first quarter, I think.
I thought that we didn't have a bad player, really.
No. Well, that's what I thought, you know. We geared ourselves up to win that grand final. It was a bit disappointing up to half-time. And in the second half, I reckon we started to hold them in all positions, and they just weren't ready for us to come back, I don't think. They were sitting on their high haunches thinking they weren't. Remember when Turner kicked that goal, we all went back down the back line. The other memory I've got was only minutes to go when Tony Turner come boring down on the left flank. That's running north, and he came out in the open, and I was standing in front of him, and he kicked straight over my head. As soon as it went over my head, I knew it was a goal. That literally sealed the game. The ground was covered as soon as the siren went. Everyone came running on. So, mate, that's about all I can put.
Thanks very much, mate.
Okay, bye.
What about 1972? Have you got any comments about that?
The only comment about that was that we had a terrific coach and we had a really young team, and that was the second or third game where I come good sort of thing as a footballer. I had a big game at Griffith and I got cheered off the ground after that game, so I wouldn't get cheered off now. Yeah.
We had a very young team.
Boy, were they talented. Your Tony Turners, your Terry O'Neills, Neil Dernan, you know, like they were guns. And Stephen McGosis, Gary Powell, Victor Hugo, all those players, they were good for a long time, they were.
Let's not sell you short. You were a dynamo in the ruck, and the stamina that you had.
Yeah, I was very lucky there. That was just one of the lucky traits, I suppose. Probably inherited from the old man, I don't know. Yeah, I think everyone's got different attributes as far as that is concerned. You know, like Stephen McGosis, people used to try and grab hold of him, he'd arch his back, well that'd give him another foot so where some people couldn't catch him, or Rodney McCallum, he could use his body so well on the half-forward flank, not he could kick between 2 and 5 goals every match. Terry O'Neill was mumbled. Victor Hugo, Gubba Powell, I'd give the ball to Gubba Powell to have a set shot for goal, I'd probably hit about 4 out of 10. If you give him a ball on the run, he did 10 out of 10. He was deadly.
When did you feel confident that we were going to go all the way?
I did feel very confident to go all the way because of the quality of the players we had and also the never die attitude. And to win games, you had to have everyone firing, or if there wasn't their day, they'll at least trying their backside off to get the end result. And that proves in the grand final. Was about the 25th minute mark of the last quarter, and we're still probably down about 17 points. Jimmy Hayes, he was on the ball, and he went out to their forward pocket. I thought to myself, you know, it's not over till the fat lady sings as far as that's concerned, and I know in the very last goal we get a point in front, I knew that if ever I had to win a ruck, I had to win the next one and hit it to the half-forward line as far as I could hit it and try and hit it to the side that our centre half-forward was on. That's what happened, and not long after that the siren rang. But you look at the pressure that was on the first graders from the reserve graders, and the reserve graders wanted to play first grade, and the under-18s was a brilliant team too, sort of thing. So, you know, the pressure was from within the club too, so that was a brilliant thing to have. I'll catch you on the reunion, mate.
Thanks, Laurie. What about your dad? Now, he came from Subiaco, was it?
Yeah, I think it was 6 seasons at Subiaco. Then he went in the army, and he coached Eastern Suburbs in Sydney. And Eastern Suburbs come up to play what was the South West Football League up in the Riverina, and he was interviewed for a coaching job, picked up Narrandera, and in 1947 they went through undefeated and won the premiership.
I got to know your dad pretty well. He was on the selection committee. You know, he was a very wise man when it came to football, and he offered me quite a bit of insight, perhaps at my age you don't expect to have. He was there for me, and he was a good support.
He definitely had certain ways of helping coaches, helping us play football with his past experience.
1974, the Thirds won the premiership, and I believe that was 4 in a row. That's the Thirds, and then the reserves, and of course the seniors. But I think what you mentioned before about Henry Matheson, he sort of set the ball rolling, didn't he?
Yeah, we used to get trained down at the Narrandera Park, and you'd get there after school, and next thing Henry would turn up on his push bike with a bag of balls, and everyone respected him. Whatever he said went.
I think there was a number of high-profile coaches, Noel Anderson, Jeff Sharp, and of course Jeff Hempel, who was still at the club when I arrived. I've got to say this, that perhaps if Jeff hadn't have injured his back in 72 or 73, that coaching job wouldn't have been available.
Yeah, not only just coaching, but he was a really good player on the ground. He looked so even to run onto the left and kick left or kick right.
I think there was some testing games throughout the season we had to overcome, and probably the Kindra Park battle, as it was written up in the paper, was one of the most significant tests that we went through.
Well, usually neighbouring towns had a lot of animosity between them, but Narrandera always had a tussle with Coolerman for some reason, and the grand final was no exception. But during the year, there were a couple of very heated incidents in a couple of the games when I think you were involved in it then.
Police came into the rooms at half-time, and the game had been quite violent up until then, and the police seen fit to come into the room and warn me to tell the players, the first player to throw a punch after half-time, the police would come onto the ground, arrest them, and they'd spend the night in the lockup. I remember going out to the centre of the ground after half-time, and Jim Hayes said to me with a bit of a grin on his face, he said, "Do the coppers come into your rooms at half-time?" I never realised at the time, but he was in the police force.
Yeah. Well, I can remember you having a close connection with one of the Coolerman players over on the boundary line near a fence, trying to sort out who was going to win.
Well, you had to be committed, didn't you?
Lead by example.
I think all the players at different times, they showed the same sort of fight. You know, we had a number of teenagers in that side, Tony Turner, Terry O'Neill, Harold Turner, I think Victor Hugo and Mick Stewart.
Yeah, Gary Powell, Rodney McCallum, Terry O'Neill.
And so intimidation was something that other teams thought they could put it over us, but the commitment of the club and the players, it stood the test, didn't it? It was a great family environment.
Yeah, and I think when we took on the contract for picking oranges out of the orchard, that was sort of out of season, but it kept everyone together. Everyone had a bit of camaraderie running off the field as well as on the field.
Yeah, well look, it's great to talk to you, Len, and it was classed as perhaps one of the most exciting wins in the history of the league.
Well, as it was broadcast on the radio, it was that chaotic trying to get out of that place with so many cars around. A lot of people had left the ground and going towards their cars to leave, to get out early. And over the radio, of course, come the business about Narrandera's hit the lead, and people come back to the ground.
Yeah, all right, mate. Well, thanks for your comments.
Good to talk to you, Adrian.
Thanks, mate.
See you later, bye.
Where are you living now?
I'm in Brisbane.
When did you go up there?
I came up here in 1985.
All right, you're well established then, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah. You kicked 2 goals and you did your knee in.
Done my ankle. Bloody bastard, he trod on me friggin' ankle. Very intensely. Trod
out on my bloody ankle after I kicked those couple of goals. That was, I went off just before half time, so I might have been able to hang on to half time, might have been right.
What do you reckon would have been the highlight for the season?
Well, the biggest thing that stood out for me was, that was my first season in seniors. The biggest thrill was playing with the rest of the senior group, and being a young bloke. The biggest thing was, also was kicking those 2 goals in the grand final. Just progressed into a better footballer through the season, through your coaching, more or less, I reckon.
You're a very good athlete.
I played a lot of basketball. I played squash in the off-season, played golf, and used to do a bit of swimming and stuff to try and keep fit.
Your mum and dad gave you a lot of support too, didn't they?
Oh, they certainly did, my word.
I remember there was one game where someone roughed you up a bit. As he was walking off the field, your dad grabbed him and invited him to have a go at someone a bit older than you.
Right, I didn't recall that.
Yeah, that's right, he did.
That's not like him, really, because he was pretty placid, old Dad. That was nice to hear.
Do you recall the last quarter? You would have been sitting on the sidelines, of course.
Yeah, I was actually sitting with Mum and Dad there that last bloody time on, and we were 17 points down, and we got those last 3 goals, took it back to the centre and bounced the ball, and the siren went, thank goodness. I remember some of the trainers, they were, with their towels, they were swinging them around over their heads, and I can still remember all that. They thought they'd had a one.
When you went up north, did you play football?
I played with a team called Springwood Pumas. It wasn't the top league or anything, because we just bought our own house and stuff up there back in those days.
Just Bob Pascoe. Did you make friendship with him?
Yeah, I know Bob and Elaine very well. We live in the same suburbs, so I quite often run into them. I go to the local footy when they play here, so I run into Big Bob. They're going really well. There was a couple of guys that I ran into down the Sharks Football Club, and as you do, I got talking to a guy, and his name was Russell McNutt. They come from Albury, and then he's married to Jane Pascoe. And
that's his daughter?
Yeah, and then the other guys, they were good mates out of Albury, and they married the 2 Pascoe girls.
All right, Mike, thanks for talking.
See you, mate. Take care.
I'm not sure whether you played in the opening game against Griffith.
I played the whole season. I've missed a few games with injury.
You came back at one stage early in the year after having a cracked rib.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I had a couple of broken ribs and missed about 3 or 4 weeks. I played centre for the whole year, but I remember the first 10 games of the year, we just went from strength to strength, and we were really, really red hot. And then either we got a bit complacent or the other teams caught up a little bit towards the end of the year, maybe.
The other test that came fairly soon in the season was Coolman.
Played him at Narrandera first, and I can remember when we played him at Coolman, because it was billed in the paper, the Battle of Kindra Park. The only way that Coolman can beat Narrandera, because they're so skillful, they might be lacking a little bit of courage. There was the Donnybrook, and
you were the main offender, I think, which was Kenny Hayes, wasn't it?
That was an accident. Anyway, I do remember the final score. I think we beat them by 100 points. That was when they decided that they had to rejig their game plan to try and beat us coming towards the finals. They were an experienced side, the grand final itself. Probably the most dramatic grand final in the history of the Southwest.
What about your mum on the sidelines? She became a legend.
Yeah, I remember a story. Dad played on a fullback for 10 years, and after 5 years, he was a fullback for Area Park, and he said, "Who is that woman?" Dad, "That's my wife." And he never said another word to Dad on the football field for another 10 years. No, she was a bit of a legend, Mama. It accentuates how fortunate we were and how lucky we were to have so many people, both on and off the field, who contributed to that success. Even, Henry Matheson down there with the school kids in the 60s and 70s, just got 60 kids on the park down there. You couldn't get 60 kids on the park now, ever.
It's great to talk to you again, Neil.
Yeah, good to talk to you too, mate. Catch you later.
I've got to say that with Tony Turner, he commented, he said Steve Magosas was the best footballer that he has played with.
They probably don't know. The bloke, he told my brother, and my name came up, and he said, I don't reckon he was any good. And the guy that said it, he didn't play first grade, and he was a very ordinary second grader. That was a bit rough. That hurt a little bit. Yeah, the best part of that with Tony was I had a front row seat. I remember seeing him at training. I seen him there one night, having kicked the kick, and Tony, he took about 1 or 2 steps and sat on this bloke's shoulder. I just shook my head and just sort of said, I get stuffed and walked away. I said, mate, I can't compete with that. Unreal. They were good times anyway.
I think the first time we played Griffith, they were a highly rated team. We beat them by 3 points. Tough game and windy conditions. Do you remember that game?
I didn't go too well against Griffith.
Who would have been playing on Kirkpatrick?
Yeah, probably me. Kevin Kirkpatrick, they reckon he was a kicker, but he never kicked me, I don't think.
You're probably too quick for him.
He did kick, but I think he's only trying to kick the ball off the ground.
There was another game that was a testing point for us, and that was Area Park. I know it was Buster Fairman that tried to come through and clean you up. Teddy Clark, the Narrandera back flanker, he clashed with Bill Quaid. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember something. A bit of difference in size, I think.
He ended up with a fractured jaw. Bill Quaid,
right,
the point with it was that you were a marked man, but they couldn't catch you. You were too quick. Moving on from that particular game, we went to Kindra Park.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You'd remember it more by the fact that the police came into the rooms at half-time. The copper, he introduced himself and he said, now you tell your players, the first player after half-time that throws a punch, we're going to come out onto the ground, he's going to be arrested and he'll be taken to the lock-up and he'll spend the night in jail.
These days they don't lock him for murder.
Things have changed. When I went back out after half-time, Jim Hayes was in the middle of the ground. He said, did the coppers come into your room at half-time? With a bit of a grin on his face. And it wasn't until later on that I found out he was in the police force.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
That rings a bell. He's an Alan Hayes could play a bit. You could get up and take a big mark. Good play.
What about the grand final? You must have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll never forget. It's the most miraculous thing I've ever seen. And I still think about it. The last quarter, it was like a game of pinball. The ball was going from one end to the other. We were well ahead. They caught up to us later in the game, perhaps the last quarter, and got ahead of us a bit. Must have been 5 points behind. It was about the 32-minute mark. I thought we were ratchet. There could have only been a minute left. Pat Graham shook Jimmy Hayes' hand. They were congratulating themselves. A couple of others doing the same thing. Up went the ball. Somehow I ended up near the goal square. The ball bounced, so I went the wrong way. I went to me left, went to me right, and Tony turned and put this big step on Charlie Martin. Tony went right, and Charlie fell for it and completely missed Tony, but then went into slow motion sort of. He went from a V8 to a bloody 4-cylinder. He's under tremendous pressure. There must have been about 3 or 4 blokes coming for it. It landed straight in Tony Turner's arms. Then he straightened up. He was on a bit of an angle.
Yep.
I was behind it. He'd done a drop punt. It went as high as the goalpost. The goal umpire didn't have to move. Yeah. I reckon nothing's perfect, but it's probably the closest thing I've ever seen to perfection. Yeah. After the goal umpire signalled a goal, I think it went back to the centre. Either when it was bounced or the umpire mightn't have even hit the ground, I'm not sure. But the siren went.
Was there any footballer that you looked up to?
Jimmy Bloomfield.
Jimmy Bloomfield, a former Narrandera player.
Yeah, he's a brilliant ball handler, beautifully balanced, very clever, good kick, great player. Sorry to hold you up.
No, you're not holding me up, mate.
Thank you.
Good on you, Steve. Bye.
Good.
Introducing Tony Turner, the toast of the town 50 years ago, and they're still talking about it.
Yeah, not in a good way sometimes. Not out of town anyway.
Just going back to that goal, do you recollect the lead up?
It's look, Adrian, it's been a long time, to be honest, but my recollection of it is that, after the ball had been kicked down the forward line, it got rushed through by Dick Peeper for a point, and that put us 5 points behind. My understanding, as I remember it, then it was kicked out, hit the ground, off the pack, and then Rodney shot out a handball to me. And I was around about 30 metres out directly in front of goal. So the goal from there was probably something you think about, in your whole footy career, having a shot from 30 metres out directly in front of goal. None of that was going through my head at the time, other than I thought, this is a goal. I had really no thoughts of what the score was at that stage, to be quite honest.
So you weren't aware that was the winning score?
Not at the time, no. No, not at the time. I knew that we were a long way down, and according to those afterwards, we were 18 points down going into time on. So I knew that we weren't in a great spot, and it never entered my head that would be the winning goal. It never entered my head that we would win or we would get beat. It was I was just playing the game. It's a huge effort, for the amount of time that we played. It was well over 120 minutes of footy. To be able to go through and finish off and win was very special, to be part of it, of the whole three teams winning. I also played with my brother in a grand final in our first outing in senior footy, so it was very special on a lot of fronts. Look, we didn't have any bad players, let's face it. I mean, H and I started on wings and we both ended up in different positions, but that was the versatility of the team. Our on-ballers and centre-line players, Steve McGasis, played right around New South Wales and at a pretty reasonable level and played some state games, and Steve McGasis is still the best player that I've played with. We didn't have any bad players. It was a very, very good team.
How many other clubs did you play with?
Oh, quite a few. I moved to Canberra and played with Ainsley for 2 years under Cowboy Neil, which was again another thrill for me. I played in a premiership side with Cowboy. I then spent a couple of years at West Canberra under Paul Felton. After that I went back to Wagga as assistant coach at East Wagga, and again in our first year, H and I both played in that grand final as well.
Okay.
Our nemesis was Coolaman, and we played them 3 times in 2 years, a win, a loss and a draw. So that was an interest. The last time I played with H was in that premiership in 82, and then my last coaching and playing was at Mangaplar Cookadina United, and I coached them to 3rd of their premierships in a row. That was my last year in 1990, and retired again after that. I had 3 years out before that, working in development with the New South Wales AFL. Went back and coached, and I enjoyed coaching. That was enormous. I coached the Farrell League and a few matches as well. And worked in development up until 1996 when I moved out into other sports.
Just on Cowboy Neil, how did you find Cowboy as a coach?
Well, Cowboy was the sort of bloke you wanted to follow into the trenches. He led by example. He was a very demanding coach. He was just such a good bloke. I don't know how good a coach he was, because I think we had some quality players. We had a quality team as well. Cowboy was a very inspirational type of leader, and he was the only bloke in the club I couldn't beat over 10 metres, which annoyed me. So he was very quick, and as you know, was a very, very good kid. He kicked 100 goals in the 2 years that I played with him, and he was just a really nice guy.
All right, well, we'll say good night.
For sure.
We'll see you on the 21st, and thanks very much.
My pleasure, mate. My pleasure.